something that made sense, something important. Something like... something... well, he couldn't think exactly what, but something important. "Hi there, Henry!" A folded newspaper landed with a thump on the grass in front of Henry. "Oh, hi, Scooter," answered Henry, glad of an excuse to talk to someone, even if it was Scooter McCarthy. Scooter was in the 7th grade at Glenwood School, while Henry was only in the 5th. Naturally, Scooter felt pretty superior when Henry was around. Henry looked at Scooter sitting on his bicycle, with one foot against the curb and his canvas bag of journals over his shoulders. He thought it must be fun to ride down the street tossing papers to the right and to the left, and getting paid for it. "Say, Henry," said Scooter, "Mr. Capper, he's in charge of all the journal boys around here. He's looking for somebody to take a route. You don't happen to know anybody around here who would like to deliver papers, do you?" "Sure," answered Henry eagerly. "Me." Talk about opportunity knocking. It was practically pounding on his door. A paper route was important, and Henry knew that delivering the journal was exactly what he wanted to do. It made sense. Scooter looked thoughtfully at Henry, who waited for him to scoff, the way he usually did at almost anything Henry said. But this time, Scooter surprised Henry. He did not scoff. Instead, he said seriously, "No, I don't believe you could do it." Henry would have felt better if Scooter had said, "You deliver papers? Ha! Big joke!" or something like that. Then Henry would have known that Scooter was just talking. But to have Scooter say, "No, I don't believe you could do it," well, Henry knew Scooter really meant it. "What's wrong with me delivering papers?" Henry demanded. "I can throw just as good as you can." "Well, for one thing, you're not old enough," Scooter explained. "You have to be 11 to have a paper route." "I'm practically 11, said Henry. "I have a birthday in a couple of months. Less than that, really. I feel 11, and if you can deliver papers, I guess I could too." "Yes, but you aren't 11, Scooter pointed out, as he pulled another journal out of his bag and pedaled on down the street. Henry watched Scooter toss a journal with an experienced flip of his wrist onto the front steps of a house farther down the block. So Scooter really didn't think he could handle a paper route. And he wasn't just joking either. Henry began to think. He'd show Scooter. That's what he'd do. Maybe Scooter was older and did have a paper route, but he would catch up with him somehow. He'd go to Mr. Capper's house on Knott Street, the house with the horse chestnut trees in front, where the boys had chestnut fights every fall, and he would ask Mr. Capper for the paper route. He would act so grown-up and so businesslike that Mr. Capper wouldn't think to ask his age. And even if he did, Henry could say he was practically 11. After all, if Mr. Capper was asking around for a boy to deliver papers, he must be pretty hard up for someone to work for him. Why, the job was as good as Henry's already. And with a paper route and a birthday, he would be as good as caught up with Scooter. Then it occurred to Henry that Mr. Capper might have asked other paper boys besides Scooter if they knew someone who would like to deliver papers. It might be a good idea to go over to Mr. Capper's house as fast as he could before some other boy beat him to it. Henry ran into the house and washed his hands as far up as the wrists. He ran a comb through his hair and pulled on his jacket, which he snatched off his bedpost. He was glad his mother was out shopping, so he did not have to stop and persuade her to let him have a paper route. He could do that after the route was his. After removing the unbusinesslike raccoon tail from the handlebars, Henry wheeled his bicycle out of the garage and was coasting down the driveway when Ribsy suddenly appeared and started to follow him. "Go home," Henry ordered. Ribsy sat down on the sidewalk. He thumped his tail on the cement and looked hopefully at Henry. "Good dog," said Henry, and started to pedal down Klickitat Street. Ribsy galloped after him. Hearing Ribsy's license tag jingle, Henry looked over his shoulder. "I told you to go home," he said. Ribsy looked hurt. He was used to following Henry wherever he went, and he could not understand why he could not go this time. Henry sighed. "I'm sorry, fellow," he said, and pedaled back to his house. There, he got off his bicycle and led Ribsy, by his collar, up the front steps. "I'd like to take you with me, but this is important. I can't have a dog tagging along when I ask for a job." He shoved Ribsy through the front door and hurried down the steps. He did not look back, because he knew that Ribsy, his paws on the windowsill, would be watching him. Henry zipped up his jacket so it would look neater and ran his hand over his hair to make sure it was combed. A boy had to look his best when he asked for a job, even though he was practically sure the job was his, if he got there in time. Henry practiced being grown-up as he pedaled toward Mr. Capper's house. He steered his bicycle with one hand and jingled the nickels and dimes in his pocket with the other hand. He sat up very straight to make himself look taller. He tried to think what to say to Mr. Capper. "How do you do?" he said politely to a telephone pole. "I'm Henry Huggins. I heard you were looking for a paper boy." Nah, that wasn't quite right. He got off his bicycle to address a mailbox. "Good afternoon," he said. "My name is Henry Huggins. I understand you were looking for a boy to deliver papers." That was better. Then Henry spoke to an imaginary bunch of boys. "Sorry," he said in a brief and businesslike way. "Can't play ball with you now. I have to start my route." Yes, that was what he would be saying after his visit to Mr. Capper. "My route," he said to himself again, and just speaking the words made him feel good. As he rode through the business district, Henry glanced at his reflection in the windows of the Rose City barber shop and the Payless drugstore and was pleased with what he saw. Businesslike. That was Henry Huggins. Why, he probably wouldn't even have to tell Mr. Capper why he was calling. Mr. Capper would look at him, and right away he would see that here was a boy who could handle a paper route. "Young man, do you want a job?" he would ask Henry as soon as he opened the door. Maybe Mr. Capper would be so busy talking him into taking the paper route that all Henry needed to say would be, "Yes, sir, I'll be glad to take the job." Already he could see himself pedaling down the street, throwing papers to the right and to the left with a perfect aim. He would never have to get off his bicycle and poke around in someone's shrubbery for a paper that had missed the porch. Not Henry Huggins. And the things he could buy with the money he earned. Stamps for his collection, a flashlight, 2 flashlights, one for his bicycle and one to keep in his room. He could even buy a real sleeping bag that he had admired in the sporting goods store. Then he could ask his friend Robert to come over and spend the night and sleep out in the backyard. It would be lots more fun to sleep in a real sleeping bag with a zipper instead of some old blankets his mother pinned together with safety pins. Just then Henry came to the rummage sale in the vacant lot. Now, a rummage sale was something Henry knew all about, because his mother had helped with such a sale only last year. A lot of ladies who belonged to a club gathered up all the old junk they could find in their closets and basements and attics and garages, and had a couple of men with trucks haul it all to a vacant lot, where they spread it all out on boards set on sawhorses. They sold the junk, or rummage as they called it, for very low prices, and used the money to buy a television set which they gave to a hospital. Since Henry liked old junk, he had enjoyed his mother's part in the rummage sale, and had been sorry to see the old dishes and lampshades and baby buggies hauled away to be sold. He had been especially sorry to see a pair of old laundry tubs taken away, because he was sure they would come in handy someday for something, he didn't quite know what. But his mother had said firmly that he could not keep old laundry tubs in his room or in the garage either, for that matter. Naturally, even though Henry was in a hurry, he had to stop to see how all the junk in this vacant lot compared to his mother's collection of rummage. He leaned his bicycle against a telephone pole and joined the crowd. Racks of old clothes hung in the corner of the lot under a couple of billboards. Nearby was the furniture department, old-fashioned ice boxes, chairs with 3 legs, sofas with the springs popping out. All sorts of odds and ends were heaped on the board tables. Henry decided it was pretty good junk. He paused in front of an old electric fan. There were lots of things a boy could do with an electric fan, especially if it worked. Just what, Henry could not decide at the moment, but he was sure there must be lots. "How much is the fan?" Henry asked the lady behind the table. 25 cents, was the answer. The trouble was that Henry could not very well carry an old electric fan when he went to ask Mr. Capper for a job. It wouldn't look businesslike. "If I pay for the fan now, could you hold it for me until I come back in about half an hour?" Henry asked. "I'm sorry, but the sale..."